What's happening, good people? We are here for Macro Dirt Podcast number 34 with Jared D's Nuts Dillian and special guest Jim Iuorio of TJM Institutional Services and the Futures Edge Podcast. Jim, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me, Tony. Jared, good to see you guys.
What's up, dishonorable discharge?
I love it. A little military spin there in honor of Pete Hegseth rearranging the U.S. military. Fantastic. As we know it. So look, we got to do, Jim, I'm so thrilled that you're on here. I was just on your podcast and I respect you as literally maybe one of my favorite, if not my favorite straight shooters on FinTwit.
Appreciate that.
Thank you.
It gets me in some tight spots sometimes, as you can imagine.
It does. And I've been there before. And that's why I appreciate what you do. You know, you speak your mind, you speak it accountably, and you say, if you want to take me on any of this, I'll be right here. You know what I mean? And that's the way that you make a point with people.
Appreciate that very much.
Yeah. Absolutely. And in honor of having a guest on our show from Chicago, where I've found the most educated sports people in the world, the most educated fan base of any city that I've ever been to, whether it's baseball, hockey, or football, are the people in Chicago. So we're going to start podcast number 34, Jim, in sports professionally. Who comes to mind when you think of number 34?
It should be every person on the planet. One person should come to mind with the number 34. And I'll give you a little hint. I'd like to introduce you to my dog. Where are you? Peyton. Look up. Hold it. Can you see her yet?
Oh, yeah. Oh, look at her. Oh, is she gorgeous?
My old mutt. She's like Walter Payton in his later years.
That's sweetness, though, right?
Sweetness, absolutely. Oh, Walter Payton was number 34, drafted 50 years ago last week out of Jackson State with the number 4 pick in the draft.
This is what I'm talking about, right? I know he's number 34. Jim knows what pick he is in the draft. That's the level of Chicago sports.
I gotta agree with the Chicago sports knowledge. Like, Yankees fans generally only know about the Yankees. Red Sox fans generally only know about the Red Sox. Chicago fans know about everything.
The sport. They know the sport. They know about their competition.
Here's a theory I have of why, but it should go for New York as well. We are so vicious about Cubs versus Sox that in order to be in the conversation with someone on the other side, you have to get your knowledge together to beat them back. So it just kind of maybe broadens out into the other sports as well. Could that be?
That's a great theory.
I like
that. Makes total sense to me. So with the other 34s that we got to go over, right, in football, wait, I have a broken mouse here, which is going to make this podcast really tough. In football, we had Earl Campbell, not to be forgotten, number 34.
Not at all, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Ricky Williams, Bo Jackson wore the 34 for the Royals and the Raiders.
Yep. Wow. I had dinner with Bo Jackson a couple of years ago, by the way. What a good guy.
Yeah, is that right? What was that like?
It was so much fun. We went to MK in Chicago. There was like 5 of us. Talked about a lot of things. I was going to help him with his golf tournament because with my restaurant, but those kind of things fell through. But he was so much fun. We stayed up to about midnight. He just told stories, and he's a great storyteller. He's a good guy. He's a really fun guy. Yeah.
2-sport professional athlete. He must have some stories, man.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. To him, football was a hobby. Bo Jackson was a baseball player in his mind. Can I tell a quick story that Bo told us?
Let's go.
So Bo was going to be the first pick in the NFL draft probably, right? But he had his whole baseball season to go at Auburn. The owner of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers sent him a message saying, we've cleared it with the NCAA. You can come and do a pro day at Tampa Bay and it won't affect your baseball season. The guy was lying his ass off. He didn't want him to play baseball in college because he wanted him to, be fresh for football, and they were going to choose him. So he flies out to Tampa Bay to do like a little pro day with the Buccaneers. I believe it was the Buccaneers. I'm sorry if I'm getting it wrong. But then he comes back to Auburn to play baseball. His coach takes him aside and says, you're off the team now. He said it was like the worst day in his entire life. You went to negotiate with a pro program and you're still an amateur athlete. You're done. And he realized the guy lied to him and he didn't give 2 shits about his baseball career. So then Bo said he took a Polaroid with a picture of him in this and sent it to the Tampa Bay owner saying, if you choose me with that pick, I will never play one down of football for you, just so you know.
Holy smokes.
Yeah. And by the way, Bo, that was one story. Bo had 20 stories that were like that. It was amazing. The Nolan Ryan, what was the name of the pitcher for the White Sox? That big fight. You remember the big fight?
Oh,
No,
Robin
not the pitcher.
Ventura.
Robin Ventura,
Robin
the third
Ventura,
baseman.
yeah.
Robin Ventura, that big fight. Bo was walking us through every detail of that fight, like how he thought there's no way they're going to hit Robin. They knew they were going to hit somebody because there's no way they're going to hit Robin. Everybody loves Robin, so he went to like the back of the dugout just to rest for the next guy because that's who they were going to hit. And he's like, oh shit, they hit him, and then the fight's going on, and I'm not even in it. So he goes, so I have to come. The fastest I've ever ran is out to that pitcher's mound to beat somebody up. And he goes, and I jumped like I was jumping in football, and then all of a sudden people moved, and my
All right, we just got Jim back on track. He's talking like a true Italian with his hands, and he just knocked the speaker out, right? That's the kind of passion I love about sports. But we're talking about the Nolan Ryan story, who's another number 34, right?
I did not know that. Wow,
Yeah.
nice one.
Also
Yeah.
in baseball, we've got David Ortiz wearing the number 34. So there's some greats all around. And then in basketball, let's just finish it up. Hakeem Olajuwon, my favorite of the 34 is Charles Barkley. And then you got Giannis Antetokounmpo. Yeah.
Nice. By the way, you just mentioned Olajuwon and Barkley, and I always make the argument in basketball that I'll take just the 1984 draft, and whoever else can take any other player from the history of basketball, and we'll get a team of 5 because I'll have Olajuwon, Barkley, Malone, Stockton, Jordan, and then I don't know, put me on the 5th. I don't give a shit who the 5th is. You take the rest of the team.
It really doesn't matter at that point, right? That is just staggering. What a year for professional basketball players. My God.
Yeah.
Well, we ran the number 34 into the gamut. We covered everything we wanted to cover. Let's talk about the markets. JD, do you want to start us off? What's top of mind in the markets right now for you?
Yeah, I mean, things are pretty quiet. It's kind of interesting because we had so much volatility around the first couple weeks of Trump with the tariffs. We had tape bombs all over the place, shit ripping all over the place, and now it's quiet. Trump proposed some tariffs this morning. Dollar didn't move. Stocks aren't moving. It is, vol is kind of collapsing. Like it's gone quiet. I'm actually starting to get interested in bonds. And I'll tell you why. Because if Doge is going to cut $1 trillion off the deficit, that's $1 trillion less in issuance. That's probably worth about 40 to 50 basis points in 10-year notes, is my guess, right? So they only have to cut $3 billion a day for a year for this to work. They cut $3 billion a day. You're gonna see the bond market 50 basis points lower. That's my prediction. So
okay. So can I respond to that real quick? Because I like that a lot. Because I can definitely envision a scenario where we run bigger deficits because if he goes through with tax cuts, which by the way, they've been mysteriously silent on tax cuts for a bit now, which I want to see tax cuts and deregulation. So I envisioned a scenario where we could be running higher deficits, but if Doge is working, the globe is still buying our bonds because they believe we're pointed in the right direction. And that's kind of what you're saying too, Jared, I think. And I agree with you that could happen. I still worry a crap ton about the fact that they've zapped all the low-hanging fruit in short-term notes by pulling it all out of reverse repo. And now they have to sell a lot of long-term bonds to service our $37 trillion worth of debt. So that's definitely on the other side of that equation. But I think your thesis is interesting.
I tend to totally agree with that too. And you guys are better at the bond market than me. I want to just touch back on the stock market for a minute because I take a little bit of an exception to there's nothing going on idea when the NASDAQ just settled at a new all-time closing high price and NVIDIA recovered all the moving averages and literally erased the DeepSeek sell-off in about 5 sessions last week. So to me, that's really relevant because on top of this, in the background, you've got the dollar backing off and commodities going bid only. So what that means now is that we've got tech sectors rallying, we've got cyclicals rallying, we've got natural resources rallying, and you can't keep a stock market down when the dynamic is like that. And sentiment is neutral. Sentiment is CNN fear and greed buried at 49. Like it's as neutral as can be. And that's the vibe that I get from FinTwit. So I'm still as bull up as can be in the stock market. And I'll join you guys with the bullish call in treasuries. If treasuries rally, I think that's going to be good for the stock market in a sign that here comes more money into the USA trade. So that's my view there, and I'm sticking to it.
And I like that view as well, and I'm bullish as well. But I am hedging more now just because of the stretch valuations. I mean, you look at it, and it's like everything you say looks good. The chart looks fabulous in the S&P. I actually think a settle above 6150. I'd love a weekly settle above it in the S&P futures, and then any sort of strength the next day or week. I think green lights the next move higher. That being said, I just spent a decent amount of money on a collar strategy today for some of my equities just because they've run so hard and we are so stretched. And again, I'm a risk mitigator at heart, which sometimes that makes me irritated because I think I'd be, my house that I rented here in Florida would be on the water instead of a block away from it. Is actually is on the water, but I wanted to make a point. Right?
That's great. I get that.
Yeah.
I couldn't agree more, Jim. I mean, when I look at the tape right now, and we're looking at the same breakout level, by the way, in the S&P. And then when you look at just days like yesterday, there were like 12 sectors up over 1% yesterday. It was like everything was floating away. Gold miners were up. Industrial miners are up. All the subsectors of tech are up. Software, semiconductors. It's like, if you're short, you better have a really good exit strategy here and a really smart idea on how to get out.
Yeah, no doubt about it. So I think, and again, the commodity thing you mentioned, I think is a fabulous point. I'm interested to get Jared's take on that too. I think when we saw these 2.5, 2.9, 3% prints in CPI, the last three prints sequentially, I believe Jay Powell's fine with that. I think his notion of 2% inflation is our target. I say bullshit to that. I can say bullshit on this show, right?
Yeah,
because you said D's nuts to beginning. So I think bullshit's right in the same thing. And I like, as you guys both know, I'm trying to bring back nards as an expression. So if you guys could help me with that, I'd appreciate
nards?
it.
I love nards.
Like
nads.
a shot
I like nads.
I like nads too, by the way.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, nads.
But so my point was going to be, is if we can get away from the nads talk for one sec, which is my fault, but is that if he's tolerant of inflation in the high twos, which I believe that he is, commodities should do fabulously. And that's been my thesis for a year and a half. And it's been a lucrative thesis so far. And I'm not
commodities, when we first started the macro dirt back in August?
Yep.
Like right off the bat, we're like, buy commodities, and it has worked and continued to work. There was a period of time in like October, November where you had a pullback. But it is worked. It has been
we
terrific.
said we nailed it on that pullback in November, December at the lows. We were like, this really looks like the last gasp here.
Yeah.
Bring it in. Right.
Yeah, exactly. And we survived the China growth scare. And then we got to this point where BCOM broke out above the range top at around 102, 103. We're trading 108 now because gold has gone berserk and natural gas came back to life.
Yeah.
Gold, we've got to talk about, guys. There's a lot going on in gold.
So gold, I believe, is in the early stages of a bubble, right? And if you remember what Soros said about bubbles, if you see a bubble forming, you want to get in there and make it bigger.
Buy it. Right. Yep.
Like it is Friday, it was down $50. Yesterday, it was up $50. Like that is the price action that you see when something is starting to go parabolic, right? Like, I don't know what the catalyst is going to be. I don't know if Bessent's going to revalue gold. I don't know if they're going to audit Fort Knox. I don't know what the catalyst is going to be, but that chart is unstoppable. The price action is unstoppable. It's starting to get a little bit ridiculous, and you want to make it even more ridiculous.
Agreed that we are going to blow ourselves into a little vertical move here that is going to end with a major headline in gold. I don't know what it is, but you can feel it percolating and the market is tensing up and coiling and everybody is like, what the fuck is going on, right? There's gold going out of the London vaults into COMEX. Elon Musk is talking about a visible walkthrough of Fort Knox. People are like, is there going to be, or could there be no gold in Fort Knox? Or is this a Costanza and all the gold that was rumored to have come over from the Vatican is now in Fort Knox? And we have even more than the market anticipated. But I feel like this is going to rally right into a revelation and then that'll be it. And we go back into kind of just, bull market as usual, probably with a steep sell-off into the moving averages and then resume. But I am dying to see what that headline is.
No doubt. And I'm apparently a gold bug. I've been being called that for several years, which I'm fine with as long as I'm making money. I don't give a crap. But I think there's a couple different elements of the story too. Central banks, ever since the Russian invasion of Ukraine, we froze them out of the SWIFT payment system and froze up dollar assets. I think it's provided motivation for some of our enemy central banks, which, I'm doing enemy in quotation for people listening. I don't know who's our enemy, who isn't at some point in time. Sometimes it's Canada, sometimes whatever. We never did talk about that Canada fight, too, by the way. That hockey game was fabulous.
We're going to get to that. We're going to do the whole off-market section on that.
So, but anyway, if these central banks are buying gold and storing it at a rate not seen in 75 years, it's a big deal that China, Russia, and even India are buying tons of gold. Now, the tariffs thing, we spoke to Luke Groman yesterday, and he laid out a really, really interesting thesis about tariffs. I'll get to the cut to the chase about eventually making storing U.S. treasuries not as great an asset for the globe as storing gold. So the tariffs provide a motivation. And again, I have to go rewatch what he said, but I loved it because it bolsters my thesis of gold, by the way. I have to go rewatch what he said. That guy's brilliant too, by the way. I don't know if you've ever had him on your show, but you should.
Luke is a high-level thinker, man.
He's a high-level thinker. And the only complaint I ever have with Luke is that he's such a high-level thinker, and he says things like, I've been watching markets for 40 years. Sometimes I only get like 70% of what he says, and I have to go, hey, can you rewind that tape a little bit? But I think the gold piece, I thought when the election happened, that one candidate was great for gold. One candidate was pretty good for gold. The one who was great for gold did not win. So I thought the move lower by 5-10% made sense to me until people realized the global ramifications of a Trump presidency and the global ramifications of what we've done in the past is boosting gold. And I think there's nothing to stop it now except for a market position bust, which we're far away from.
Good point. I want to talk about gold miners for one moment right now, because in my opinion, gold miners, the gold miner bulls can't make eye contact with people right now. Right, because a couple of months ago we had the S&P at 5,800, gold at 2,700, and GDX trading 44. And now we've got the S&P at 6,100. We've got gold at 29 and a quarter, and GDX is 41 bid. You know what I mean? So this is to me, this is illustrating now where the clear bull market to be in is the metal.
So two things.
Shoot.
Wall Street Bets is starting to get interested in gold miners. There's some chatter on Wall Street Bets about buying gold miners, right? Hasn't started yet, but that's coming. The second thing I want to point out about GDX, a lot of people don't realize this, but it's not a market cap weighted index. It's an equal weighted index, right? So Newmont, which is the biggest dog in the history of dogs, is only 3.3% of GDX. It's not like it's a huge weight in the index, So when it goes, it's going to go,
So
could be.
Yeah, I have scars in my head from scratching it to figure out why the gold miners didn't follow suit, which is fine, by the way, because the technical setups never played out for me to get long in those, and it did in gold. So I'm long the metal. I have not touched the miners at all, but I have zero idea. Jared's idea is as good as any in my mind.
Yeah. Well, the way I just freeze. Okay, I think we're back. The way I see this panning out is we are going to chug higher in gold until we get to that headline. And then gold miners are going to start off from here. And then when gold pulls back into the moving averages, gold miners are going to get sconed because they're long only and there will be no buyers on the way down. So that's the risk that I see developing in the market.
Is that a big enough risk for you not to touch them right now or no?
Jim, I haven't touched gold miners from the long side in years.
Good.
I'm bullish the metal. I've been long the metal. I've had the metal on my view matrix exactly since I started writing the newsletter. It was the first position I ever had.
My fundamental view is on the metal, and once I start buying miners, then I'm buying management teams and efficiency and whatever. I don't know that shit.
And legal risk and natural resources risk and everything, all of it. I want no part of it, but people still have wood for the gold miners, so we'll see how that treats them. What other sectors or parts of the market do we need to discuss?
Let's talk about Russell for a second. Can we?
Yeah. Shoot.
Okay, so let's talk tariffs. Let's talk. And by the way, Luke also pointed out. I'm still my head spinning from a Luke interview yesterday. I pointed out the massive amount of long positions that like the Chinese have in big tech. Like I was not really aware of that. That the Chinese and many other foreign entities too, particularly governments, are buying U.S. equities, and particularly what are they buying? They're buying the same thing everybody else is buying too. So if that trade starts to come to an end, as we try to kind of put China on the other side of the trade negotiation and put up a wall with more and more tariffs, I believe that it could disproportionately affect them negatively. And then where does the money go? Well, maybe they'll look for companies that do their business within our shores, and Russell could do well for that. Russell likes lower rates. There's no question of that. And so far, they haven't really been getting them in any sort of earnest. So I'm waiting for that trade to develop a little bit, but I think it's interesting. I had been long the banks because I thought the yield curve was going to steepen. So far, it's worked-ish. So that one's been an okay trade. But Jared, what do you got?
About the Russell?
About anything. I sometimes forget it's not my show. I shouldn't be asking the question.
I don't really have a view on. I don't really have a view on small caps. I mean, I think we are going to get lower rates. I think that's going to happen in the next 1 to 2 months. I think rates are going to start to creep lower. The interesting thing about, I'm a chart guy, so when I look at the chart of the S&P and I look at the chart of the Russell looks like it's bottoming a little bit. It's got a more constructive chart. So maybe if we do get that 100 basis point, meltdown in rates, then, you get a bid to Russell, but I haven't traded Russell in years. I mean, back at Lehman, I was trading IWM until my head exploded, but I haven't really touched it since then. So,
well, can I mention one other sector too, Tony?
Yes, please do, Jim. I want to touch on the banks real quick too, but go ahead.
Okay, so there's the one thing that another head scratcher for me when I looked at the macro scenario after Donald Trump won the presidency. I thought, based on the fact that Jay Powell is tolerating higher levels of inflation, I thought the commodity sectors would do great. Then when I started to drill down, I thought copper wouldn't do as well because we're moving away from a lot of the green energy bullshit. And I thought platinum and palladium would do great because we'd be moving more towards combustion engines. Now, they've done very okay, like not well at all. And I'm still waiting for the big move higher in those. I'm not in palladium. I am in platinum. I have been. It's a kind of a legacy position investment. But I thought those would do really, really well. And I was wrong. I also thought that gold wouldn't do as well as platinum, palladium, and silver. And I was wrong about that as well. But it's nice being wrong when you have all of them anyway and you're still making money. So it doesn't really matter that much. Yep. Jared, did you say it was platinum looked like it was breaking out?
No, I didn't. Not breaking out. I said copper is got a little congestion here, but once it works through that, it's got upside.
And the copper trade is kind of funny to me. I thought with China, us going to trade wars with China, us going away from electric cars, that copper, which I'm long, would kind of underperform, but it hasn't, Tony.
Jim, I like your ideas of being long metals. At least they have really responded to some of the Trump trades that are going on in the markets. And I want to shift gears for a minute because like one of the biggest topics on Twitter and everywhere in the world is Elon Musk. Right.
I've heard of him.
Yeah, exactly. You can't get him out of your face now, whether you like it or not. It's like we don't need Donald Trump back on Twitter because we have Elon Musk on Twitter taking the piss out of everybody standing in his way. And like, what do you guys think about what he's doing? I mean, I'm a sincere believer that he is going to uncover a massive amount of waste, a massive amount of corruption, a massive amount of fraud. And I don't really care about the dollar amount. I'm glad that the richest guy in the world was appointed. Look at the people that are taking him apart, like Pocahontas and Chuck Schumer and Scott Galloway and Kara Swisher and my buddy Gordon online. And it's like, I don't know how to find something negative with what Elon Musk is doing. This is the transparency movement. It's a revolution, for God's sakes.
I love how people say, Elon Musk is getting my social security number. And I'm like, all right, let me get this straight. The richest guy in the world wants your $2,000, right? Like this makes a lot of sense,
Can't we just use a logic path towards what he's doing? I mean, if you're accusing of something, taking your money is literally the dumbest thing I've ever heard.
Yeah. Yeah, but no, we can't follow a logical path because we've known that we're not capable of that any longer, of following logical critical thinking. But to my point, like even if these federal employees were guilty of taking a box of staplers home, I'd want that punished. You know what I mean? I don't want any fraud. I don't, like, to your point, Tony, I don't care what the amounts were. Screw these people. You should not be stealing money. You should not be funneling money. And I'm from Illinois, by the way. Every construction project is just funneled to somebody's brother-in-law. It doesn't matter if the road needs work.
By the way, did you see WikiLeaks tweeted out the other day, Google Trends searches for offshore bank account IBAN wire transfer are skyrocketing out of Washington, D.C.
Same thing with defense lawyers, right?
Yeah.
I mean, these people are like walking zombies to me. Like, they've been caught with their hand in the cookie jar. They've got their last attempts to try to stop what's going to happen. And when you've got Elon Musk posting to the world that you're making 200 grand a year and you're worth 70 million, I'm sorry. Somebody's going to crawl up your ass right now. Right. And we're going to find out exactly how that happened. And I think that's going to be a great thing for America. So I'm just trying to make sure I'm using you guys as my, my sanity check here, because I'm just trying to make sure that I'm on the right side of history. And I still think that I am. Rooting for him to doing what he's doing rather than stop this man from, cutting into democracy by uncovering fraud. Like, I can't get there. So I'm glad that
and they'll have our social security number thing. Just think of all the different companies that have your social security number already. We give our social security number relatively freely. This is not a big deal. And for people who stand there and say he's an unelected official, no, he's completely elected. He was literally standing on stage with Donald Trump at rallies for 4 months. We elected them together as a team. Yeah.
Yeah. And like, I didn't vote for Jake Sullivan in the last administration. I didn't vote for Mayorkas.
Yeah. I didn't vote for Soros, Alex Soros.
Right. We just dealt with them having their way with the American landscape for 4 years. So, and I didn't say a word about it. You know why? Because I couldn't do shit about it.
Yeah, of course. Right.
So what's the point? Right.
Yeah.
Good. That was a good sanity check there. I appreciate and love you guys very much for that. We're going to go a little further off markets now. I want to hear what our Chicago man and what JD have to say. JD, we started our podcast, was it a week ago, with, I don't know what the mood is going on, but there is a palpable mood in America, right? Like, there is something really, really powerful changing here. We're winning every day. And then the USA hockey team comes out against Canada in the Four Nations tournament in Montreal and drops the gloves and has 3 fights on the opening faceoff and then proceeds to kick the crap out of Canada. That is the embodiment of that attitude that you witnessed, that we are witnessing. Right, Jim? What do you think about this? Because I have even more thoughts about this.
First of all, at its most base level, Canada, you had one thing on us. You had one thing. You had hockey. We took it from you viciously. Okay, and you booed our national anthem, so you drew first blood. I have zero sympathy with that. But these are hockey people, hockey fans. I expected them to have a tiny bit more respect. I was shocked that they booed our national anthem, quite honestly.
Yeah, me too.
And I think the notion that they dropped their gloves and beat the shit out of them was so beautiful and poetic. And again, I grew up thinking that everybody solved their disputes by either getting punched or punching somebody. I thought that was normal. And that when I got to be an adulthood and went to college, like, oh, everybody doesn't just beat the shit out of each other all the time. Okay, your way is better. But then again, sometimes I think back at my misspent youth and think that punching someone in the face sometimes is not a bad way to solve something. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, it comes back to the fact that, you've got to stand up for yourself and prove a point when necessary, right? If there's one thing, even though I think he was on the losing side of the fight against Matthew Tkachuk, Brandon Hagel said, I didn't take that fight for the cameras. I did that for the flag. Right. And that's badass, right? How powerful is that? And we're now talking, let's remind everybody, Jim knows this, so does Jared. This is the NHL All-Star break, right? This is in lieu of having everybody get dressed up on the East versus West outfit and play some goofy scrimmage game. This is, you put the jersey of your nation on and you go and compete against everybody else. So there's something really, really special. This is like,
it was beautiful.
The Tkachuk brothers have never been able to play on the same team before.
Yeah.
right? And now their dad, which is a great story, right? Keith Kachuk, the 18-year veteran of the U.S., he's one of like 6 Americans who have scored over 500 goals. Right now, he's sitting there watching this game with his son playing for the USA, and like at a 52-year-old guy that he is, a little younger than me, like I've got goosebumps for this guy. His 2 sons just beat the shit out of 2 guys from Canada and skated into the penalty box, banging on the glass. I mean,
after they insulted us as a nation, I like to put that part first. First things first. They drew first blood.
They drew first blood, but did you see Brady Kachuk skate away from that fight like Gorgeous George? Like, look at my USA jersey. We are going to kick your ass. And then the game went that way.
Yeah.
And now, I mean, now we've got the rematch Thursday night, tomorrow night. It'll be the day we release the morning, the dual Macro Dirt podcast, for God's sakes. I'm having a brain fart. What do you think happens in the final game?
So I think Trump shows up.
You do, right?
I think that'd be beautiful. I do. And I don't know. I was surprised to beat Canada in hockey. Seemed like it was far-fetched. And again, of the sports, I know the least about hockey. So I might be a little over my depth, but I knew a little bit about fighting, and I thought that was beautiful.
Yeah. Oh man, what was really awesome was watching, who was it, JT Miller take on that monster who's 7 feet tall, you know what I mean? And just try to survive the fight. And he made it. That was like a David and Goliath story right in front of everybody. I thought it was spectacular.
But I want to know who the guy was who looked across to his teammates when they were booing and said, the second they drop the puck, we're knocking the shit out of them. I'm doing it. Who's with me? I want to know who that guy was.
Yeah, man. Really, really powerful stuff. And I just love that they had that kind of an attitude. I mean, it was amazing against the backdrop of the NBA All-Star weekend and LeBron James not playing because his ankle was hurting.
Oh gosh, that guy,
right? Like I don't even know how he makes eye contact with anybody in the NBA anymore.
Me neither.
Or maybe he doesn't, but
the flops. That's one of the reasons we don't really embrace soccer that much in this country, is because Americans hate flopping. And LeBron James has been flopping his entire career, and he takes plays off. His athletic ability is unbelievable. One of the greatest athletes of all time, obviously. Yeah. But come on, to compare that guy with Michael Jordan it's a waste.
I was just going to say, give me the Chicago guy's view on when people dare compare LeBron to Michael Jordan. What do you source? What sort of info do you
Here's the whole thing is that people look at Michael Jordan and think that he was some big scorer and a flashy player. Michael Jordan was primarily a defensive player, primarily a driver of his teammates toward excellence. The fact that he scored 35 a game, one season 35 a game, was, to me, that's what he thought. This is what solves the immediate problem of winning this basketball game. Not only did he not take games off, he didn't take plays off. It could be a Tuesday night playing the Indiana Pacers and you were up by 40, and he still wants to rub your face in every point. He was the most weird. I don't even think, I wouldn't hang out with that guy for 5 minutes because he seemed like he was so weirdly competitive and odd. It's like, dude, relax. But to watch him play basketball, oh my God, was that fabulous. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
You agree or disagree, Jared?
Oh, I totally agree. Agree.
Good. Yeah.
The peak that we got into Michael Jordan in the series, what is it, The Last Dance? That was
The Last Dance.
Coolest inside scoop that I ever got on him, with just listening to him talking about competition and about chirping. And, it's easy to talk shit when you're up 5 or 6 points, but when the game's even, that's when talking shit means something, and just things like that from the world's greatest competitor, in my opinion. I mean, what is he, 6-0 in NBA finals? He's got 6 rings. He's 1-0 in the NCAA finals. He's 2-0 in the Olympic competition. I mean, all this guy does is win.
Yes, and MVP finals in every one of those 6 wins. By the way, when the Bulls chose Michael Jordan, I was listening to it on the radio and I was not for the choice. I thought he was another, and I'm a basketball guy. I've coached basketball for 25 years. Really? I thought he was another slasher who couldn't shoot very well from the outside. And I was like, crap, I really wanted that center that went to Portland named, I can't even remember his name. Hakeem went first. Then the next guy was Sam Bowie.
Sam Bowie, that's Portland. Right. Good call.
And Jordan went to the Bulls. And I remember thinking, whatever, he might be fine. And then all of a sudden I'm hearing in practice like he's destroying everybody. I'm like, oh, okay, this could be fun.
Yeah. Oh, gosh. Yeah, it was tremendous. Right out of the gate he was. JD, what were you going to add in there? I feel like we cut you off.
Let's cut it right here. I gotta go.
I didn't
I
know
got
that.
someplace to be. Yeah.
Fuck. Why didn't you tell me that? All right.
Yeah.
We're going to go 3, 2, 1. Hasta la vagina. Jim Iuorio, thank you so much for joining us. And we're going to have you on the show again, without a doubt. In no time at all. I love having you here in the conversation with us.
Thank you, guys. I love being here.
Hasta la vagina, everybody.
Hasta la vagina.
What you guys just said, I'm 100% in.
Keep that in, Braden.